I'm not sure. I didn't ask.
Bummer, man.
Yeah. Yeah, guy. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is Spit, the Spit Podcast. It's Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. Good morning, David Lee Scales.
Good morning, Scott. Big week in surf news.
Yeah, a lot going on. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I'll agree with you.
Well, between the kind of update to the WSL's schedule and their projected plans versus what the local people will allow them to do, Nev Hyman getting in hot water, Dane Reynolds dropped an edit, Russell Bierke's Wipeout, tons. Free scrubber.
Wow. All of these things I don't know anything about. I gotta be honest.
Good. Well, I'll be doing a monologue today. You could chime in whenever you want.
Well, I have a full show produced that doesn't have any of that stuff on it.
That's what I'm saying. It's a huge week in surf news.
Oh my lordy. Well, we better get right into it.
Let me print one retraction or correction from last show. We were talking about Stab in the Dark and Taj Burrows' boards being small, and I was saying there were rumors that the boards weren't actually built for Taj.
Yeah.
Correction. They were always built for Taj, as it turns out. They were going to go to the Mentawais, so they were built for a different location. But there was one detail in there. Stab was simultaneously organizing electric acid surfboard test, which apparently Kelly Slater was scheduled to do in Bali. So those boards were built and shipped, or some of them were shipped to Bali, which then Firewire decided that it would not be a good idea for Kelly to participate. So Kelly backed out of that deal, and I don't know if they have found another surfer for the electric acid surfboard test to ride those boards or not. I'm sure that they will. But that was the one little detail that was incorrect from our last show. So the boards were always built for Taj.
Well, look, since we're talking about this, I'll just say this real quick. I watched the second installment. I'm sure you did too. Did you?
I did.
I think that they're using too many boards. I don't think they have enough time for Taj to really dig into each and every board. It seems a bit rushed. The whole process seems rushed. Maybe it's the edit that creates this sort of feeling that he's just rushing through the boards. But I kind of feel like if we're here, we're involved, let's do this thing. Let's do it right. Let's give the shapers and their effort and the board more of a chance. And here's how I would produce the next Stab in the Dark. I would put 30 shapers' names into a hat. And it would be a mix of established guys like, the Timmy Pattersons and the JSs of the world, with lesser known guys that are equally talented shapers like Michael Barron or Kalu Kaleta or Ryan Sakel. There's a host of them. And then I would even throw some legendary guys that can shape really nice high performance shortboards, guys like maybe, and again, I'm just riffing, Terry Sennett comes to mind, Robin Prodanovich. There's a million older guys. Who's the guy in Santa Cruz that you just interviewed?
Stretch
would be, even the other guy in Santa Cruz, the big wave, Bill, who am I saying? Pearson, Bob Pearson. Those types of guys, right? So we got 30 names into a hat, and you simply draw 6 names out of that hat. And those 6 are who we get. Like, that's just who it is. And I think the draw would be fun, and it would be dramatic, and it would be good for the edit. And I think it would be a better way to do it. I think they have too many guys. I think the surfer needs to spend more time. Now you've got 6 10-minute edits, one with each shaper, and then maybe a final 7th edit, which is the final, something like that. I don't know. Just my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Are they not spending enough time with each board? Does it feel like they're rushing through it?
Yeah, in a sense, for sure. And I also found myself less engaged with episode 2 than with episode 1. Because you're right. It is just, you're almost trying to absorb too much. So you just kind of check out or tune out or something. But I do think that, look, Taj can identify a board that he doesn't want to ride again in one session. So there are going to be a percentage of the boards that he assesses instantly and doesn't need to ride 3 or 4 or 5 times, because he's that savvy. But I still think 12 is too many boards for sure. Yeah. 6 would be a little bit more compelling, and a little bit more for us to actually get to know the characters, get to engage in, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I agree. Did you
Right,
find
well,
yourself less engaged with this one?
a little bit. I mean, I scrubbed, speaking of free scrubbers, I kind of scrubbed through it, you
Oh,
know,
you
like
did. Okay. Then that
I
says
would
it
just,
all.
I would go to the next, I wanted to see him ride the board. I was like, I would scrub to which the shaper is, and then I would scrub to his rides, and then I would scrub to the end when he was like, I don't know, I kind of like it. It seemed like, I found that with Mayhem, it felt like Ashton wrote the piece to kind of go, hey, bro, you know, you won last time, you're not going to get through this time, but you're still really cool. Don't get mad at us.
That is so funny that you say that. I thought the script was very well written, but exactly what you just said. It's like in the past, they've got their wrist slapped a few times, and now it's like it is a really beautiful, delicate dance that they put together in this script. It's like we're going to sprinkle a little bit of love on each of you, but we're also going to cover our butts. We're going to like, it was hilarious, but really well done. Like in terms of trying to pull that off, they executed it flawlessly. But
yeah. Anyway,
but yeah.
Just real quick, we'll just get to it. Sharp Eye was in this episode, and he got through and out from this episode were Mayhem, Dan Mann, and Jason Bennett from Chemistry. And it looks like Hayden Kooks is one of the undecideds, and we'll move on.
Cool.
Yeah.
New episode's Thursday, I think.
Okay. Cool.
Tomorrow. Stab Premium.
I'm still, as you mentioned, I'm still very intrigued with Taj and Taj's surfing. And it does seem like he's surfing the same wave kind of over and over again, but maybe they'll change that up.
Yeah, the waves get good for the second half of the vids.
Yeah.
So what's on your notes then?
Well, I've got this email that was sent to us.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
So this one of our listeners, I boiled it down as best as I could.
Good.
Here's his. It is, and I try to boil it down. Here's his email to us. It says, I've been a surfer for about 12 years. I feel super comfortable in the ocean, and I believe I am aware of my surroundings. I moved to this neighborhood a couple of years ago for my wife's job. There is one spot that's just a couple of minutes from home. It's not shown on any camera sites and usually only has a couple of guys out. The localism is known to be savage. I head over there on a smaller day, high tide, between shifts. I catch a sweet ride. The crew lets me rotate into a few waves. It all seems good. The swell starts building a little more the next day, nothing crazy, but I decide to start surfing there more often. I roll into the lot. I see more guys out in the water. Suddenly, I notice out of the corner of my eye, a guy is standing right behind me, like 2 feet away. My heart starts pumping, and I say to him timidly, hey, what's up? Can I help you? The guy goes point blank, where are you from? I said, I'm from here. He said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. The guy says, what's your zip code? I tell him my zip code. And basically I say, hey, look, I live here. My wife lives here. She works at the hospital. I work from home. And the guy kind of chills out and says, okay, cool. And we exchange names and we start talking about boards and all seems well. And he walks away. And as he walks away, he says to me, I would have totally screwed with your truck. You know how this place is. And I continue to put on my wetsuit. Suddenly I hear another dude who looks like the big kahuna just fully screaming at me incoherently from down the beach. I can see that my new buddy is talking to him and flailing his arms around. And I pause and I look out at the waves and then back at my truck. And I just think to myself, screw this, it ain't worth it. And I start taking my gear off. And my new buddy just runs by me with his board trying to avoid my eye contact. And I holler at him, hey, it looks like your friend isn't too happy. And he answers at me without looking at me, yeah, he's pissed. So I pack up my dry gear and I head out with my tail tucked between my legs. And as I exit the parking lot, the big kahuna yells at me, yeah, that's right. I am actually shaking as I write about this. So many emotions roll through my mind when I play this scenario out, from embarrassment to anger to sadness to loneliness. And I even daydream about the guy, if he showed up at my other spot, how I might slash the shit out of his tires and wax his windshield. What gives him the right? Then I settle down and remind myself that I'm above it. It's not worth occupying my mind with such garbage. What itches me the most is that I didn't even have the chance to prove that I'm not some inconsiderate asshole. But then again, I'm glad for people like Big Kahuna that keep our waves from being infested. I don't understand the lesson though. Isn't the ocean for everyone who can respect it? So that's this gentleman's email to us, David, and he is suggesting that we comment on it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it sounds like the first instance that this guy has ever encountered any level of localism, and it worked perfectly. So this is why localism exists, is because this perceived threat, whether it would have ever transpired or not, was enough to make this guy so upset that he's saying that he's shaking while he's writing the email telling us about it. So that's why localism exists, is because it actually works. I would argue he doesn't need to get upset at all. Like, if you go into those guys are wrong for doing what they're doing, but it's effective and their waves are empty because of it. So they're going to continue to do it. His role in that scenario was to either tell those guys to F off and, take a couple photographs of them and their license plates or whatever he feels like he has to do in case something does go down later, that he can exact retribution if need be, legally or otherwise, or do what he did, drive away and be like, you know what, this isn't worth it, but it's also not worth being upset for the next months about it. You either confront it, engage with it, and kind of demand to be respected, or just go, you know what, you guys, this isn't worth it. I'll just go surf somewhere else that isn't localized, that is more crowded and crappier, and not have to deal with this stressor. But the fact that he's so worked up and upset about it is unfortunate to me and unnecessary. Like, and the exact reason why they did what they did, they victimized him, and he played the role of a victim, and then they get what they want. And so I think that is the really unfortunate part about it. And I'm not shaming him for playing that role. It's just, God, it's a disempowering role to play, and there's nobody feels good about it, except the victimizers. So I would have, I already said what I would have suggested. What do you think?
Well, I think you summarized it really well. Firstly, I'm very sorry that this gentleman had this encounter. It sounds upsetting. I know that I would be upset if this occurred. And the bottom line is that, let's just cut to the chase, right?
Surfers are the worst. Emblazoned across Scott's man boobs.
Surfers are the worst. I don't think that those aren't man boobs. Those are plates.
You're right. That was muscle. I am sorry.
Those are steel plates right
As
there.
a reflection of arc method.
Thank you. And sourdough bread baking.
Arc method underneath, sourdough on top.
Right. I don't think that Duke Hanamoko would approve of these locals.
Of course.
Their actions.
Of course not.
And then I wrote to the guy, I think he may have seen my reply to him, but our problem, my problem, your problem, the world's problem is that we act and we react on fear. Fear of too many surfers, fear of outsiders encroaching on our limited resource, fear of locals not being respectful, fear of outsiders not being respectful to the locals, fear of non-locals, fear of being seen, fear of not being seen, fear. Most everything that I do or say oftentimes can be boiled down to fear. And at the end of the day, surfing is supposed to be fun. And so I think what you said, look, go somewhere where you're going to enjoy yourself, makes the most sense. And if confronting these types of people is an enjoyable thing, or if you get satisfaction out of pushing back, then okay, go do that. That's not something that I would do. I would scurry and just realize that surfers are fucking lame, man.
Well,
at the end of the day, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to call yourself a surfer when shit like this is going down.
It totally
is.
It is, but
and that's why surfers are the worst.
Look, surfing is a microcosm of life as we know it. And so this kind of scenario exists in life. This is the most kind of primary scenario that exists in life. Somebody protecting a finite resource, right? And so I don't think that the only other option is, if you enjoy confronting these guys, then you can confront them. No, you don't have to enjoy the confrontation, but what's on the other side of the confrontation? What's on the other side of fear? Because in this scenario, the guy who wrote the email, he had fear as well. He had fear of his car getting vandalized, and he had fear of getting punched out by these locals. What's on the other side of that? I bet you some waves are on the other side of that. If you paddle out and they vandalize your car and you get a bunch of waves, well, then you have to deal with your vandalized car. And like I said, if you would have, I don't know, gotten their identities, then you can go ahead and rectify that situation. If you get punched out, what's on the other side of that? Anything short of, you have to be able to accurately perceive the threat. So if these guys are going to kill you or do like actual harm, then don't engage with it, or go get the authorities or whatever. But if they're just going to punch you out, you can survive that. And if you paddle back out after that, I would reckon that they would probably give you a wave or two, And so what is on the other side of the fear is the next question that I would ask. And if it isn't worth it, if none of that is worth it, that's fine. I'm not saying you're a wuss for not doing it. I probably wouldn't do it. And in that case, go ahead and just go surf the more crowded place. But I just think confronting fear is actually a super powerful thing to do, and finding out what's on the other side of it, because living in it is going to really limit your life.
Yeah, for sure.
And
no, you don't want to live in it.
I don't know. We have no idea. This guy did not identify his location, not even the country. And so I have no idea how lethal those locals were. I would argue 9 times out of 10, it's all posturing. And the fact that the guy is like, "Where do you live?" I've never heard a local ask that in my life. If the locals there who are defending their spot are actual locals, they know who's in and who's out. And so there's no asking, "What's your zip code?" The question, once they said, "What's your zip code?" I'd be like, "Dude, get out of here, beat it." Like, I'm battling out. Would you like 2 forms of identification? Like, the locals sounded like they were just posing anyways.
What's your favorite donut flavor at the donut store?
Exactly. But I agree. I mean, by the way, I kind of didn't state it, but I fully agree with your first sentiment, which was, you're sorry to the dude who wrote the email. I'm sorry too. That's a bummer situation to go through.
It is.
But it also is, to be honest, what makes surfing awesome is
Be careful. Be careful. How does this make surfing awesome?
Look, because there's stakes. It's not paying for a ticket at Disneyland and going in and living somebody else's dream that you then impose on yourself and feel good about yourself. You have to earn it. You have to go through, not only confronting Mother Nature and all that sort of stuff, but you have to go through these hunter-gatherer primary human scenarios to get the finite resource. And so that makes it all valuable, Yeah. There's value in it because of the consequences involved in it.
Yeah, it's fascinating discussion, really, on a much deeper level, like the concept of basically war, confrontation, like, is that, it's so Western. What fascinates me is that the Hawaiians and Hawaiians to this day, true Hawaiians with Hawaiian blood, are the most loving and giving people as far as ocean and waves and just life, right? Like, and I think it's because, and I've mentioned this to you before, surfing in the ocean is so much a part of who they are and what they are, that they don't like disassociate or break away the act of riding waves from their culture, whereas we're like, oh, we go do this because it allows us to get away from what we really are. Whereas Hawaiians are like, this is who we are, man. Come join. Like, you can't take this from me. Like, there's nothing you can do to take away my ocean spirit because I'm Polynesian. Whereas we're like, I don't know, continental USA, grandparents from Kansas, and we've just discovered this thing called surfing. 30 years ago and it's ours to hold on to, and don't you know how cool we are? It's like there's a lot to unpack, and I'm doing more to create packing than unpack it as I talk here.
Well, it's similar. It's not unique to Hawaii. I mean, it's similar to what Native Americans have about living on the land for all of the time that they lived on it before Europeans settled. Was there's like a spirituality in the land, and they use every bit of the land, and they're not exploiting the land, you know, and they're
a part of, right? Like
exactly,
the thing I was trying to get was that it's so intertwined. It's not, they haven't separated it like, oh, here's a resource we'll exploit, and it's all just like, it's a circular thing, you know. It's like it's all a part of, and we're going to respect it and appreciate it, and it's a part of us. And
right.
Whereas like you and I don't mean to throw you under the bush, but Western continental surfers tend to go, well, that's this thing over here that we need to exploit, and nobody else can exploit it. And I'm going to get as much of it as I can, and I'm not going to tell you about it. And if I see you, I'm going to protect it like it's my resource. And there's this really weird sort of like capitalistic market exploitation kind of psychosis around it.
Totally. Which is, in the end, probably a very unhealthy way to live.
Right.
I mean, because It's all fleeting. It's all a farce, first of all.
Yeah.
And then it's fleeting. And so the exact construct that you just described only serves to prop me up temporarily. But if you live in that fantasy and you don't realize that you're standing on a false bottom, and you put all of your value in that fantasy, then you're inevitably going to be let down.
God.
You gotta put all your value into some other thing. You can still build and prop yourself, but don't put your value into it.
People need to subscribe to this podcast. This is like friggin' Wayne Dyer type shit right here.
I agree.
Okay, what else do you got?
So there was a rumor about a week ago, which is now all but verified, that the WSL is going to be adding a fourth stop. They will be renting that 747 out of LAX to Sydney. They're going to be adding a fourth stop to the Australian leg of the tour to kind of make it worth everybody's time to go there. The fourth stop is going to be at Lennox.
Wow.
Is this all news to you?
It is. I saw the emails, but I was too busy yesterday to open any of my mail.
Fair enough. So this is, again, not verified by the WSL, but all but verified by the local councils that have to approve all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And people that work within those
Where'd
companies.
you get this info? Did this come from the WSL, or did you get this from inside source?
Beach Grit for sure. Long Tom on Beach Grit, Steve Shearer is covering it and interviewing all the people involved. So this rumor broke, and then immediately there was backlash from the Lennox populace, people who live in Lennox and Ballina Council Chamber, Shire Council. And basically they said the dates have been confirmed, which actually there's another detail here, is that it actually conflicts with the Bells dates on the WSL's website. It's going to be on Easter. So the implication is that they would actually reschedule Bells. Of course, Maurice Cole chimes in and says there's no chance that we would allow them to reschedule Bells. Adam Robertson, who's, runs Surfing Victoria, he said he knows nothing about this. He has not been informed, and he's still expecting to set up the event at Bells on the dates that are scheduled. But let me see, I just kind of stepped on some of my notes. So the WSL says that they've gotten approval. I don't know, actually, because this isn't on the WSL's website, but employees of the WSL claim support for the Lennox event. But the Lennox National Surfing Reserve Committee wrote on their website, "We are the custodians of the Lennox National Surfing Reserve Association and have not been approached by the WSL for the proposed contest site. We have reached out to them. The community is disgruntled. Community disgruntlement is already occurring in regard to this proposal. Approving this contest will divide the community even more." So does BSC really need another point of division like the Lake Ainsworth Road debacle? The concern is that mass protests in the water and while the event is on in regard to paddle outs will interfere with the contest. Could result in injury to community members, contestants, officials, and security. The association also points out that under federal, state, and local legislation within the Lennox National Surfing Reserve, all current activities, access, and licenses which have been issued by regulatory authorities to individuals or groups will remain unchanged. So if the BSC allows, which is the Ballina Shire Council, allows the contest to occur, they would be in breach of any of these laws, as surfers would be restricted from the reserve throughout the contest period. One counselor, Jeff Johnson, publicly decried these things, and I actually don't have that email handy. But basically, the long and the short of it is, the WSL is apparently trying to pull this off. The local people are up in arms about it and not going to let it happen. So even if the WSL can kind of jump through all the COVID loops, it seems like there's a lot of community loops that they probably wouldn't be able to jump through.
So my question is, the WSL decides to do an event at Lennox. Who do they first reach out to? They obviously didn't reach out to the Ballina Council Shire. It sounds to me like they went to the head of Surfing New South Wales. Lennox is up in the northern part of the state, way far away from Sydney, where I'm sure the head of Surfing New South Wales resides. I'm just assuming all this, but they must have said, I mean, isn't your first call to the head of Surfing New South Wales, which is probably has some sort of connection to the WSL in Australia in some way, and said, hey, we want to do an event at Lennox. And he probably went, well, let me look into it. I think we can do that. I mean, how do you not reach out to the local council?
Yeah, I don't know. Though it seems like they did do that, and the local council preliminarily approved it, and then the community found out. The community gave all this backlash, and then they just did the vote, I think literally within the last day, and they voted to reject the proposal.
Oh, okay.
So
it's not going to happen. This is not going to happen.
I can't imagine it would happen. But then
Mark Thompson's going to have a field day.
Yeah. Yeah, the proposal is to block off. This is from that Jeff Johnson, the council member who spoke out about it. He said that the proposal would block off Lennox Headland Lookout from March 25th through April 15th, and it would prevent access to the surf break and likely restrict other surf breaks in Ballina Shire, such as Boulders Beach and Sharps Beach. Lennox will already be bursting at the seams due to school holidays, local visitors naturally wanting to surf. And so surely consideration needs to be made for the local residents and the many visitors who have already booked to spend their holidays in Ballina and Lennox. So that's reasonable. Look, if there's a bunch of tourists who have already scheduled that stuff and the WSL swoops in with very short notice and cancels all of those random people's plans, that would be
plus the cloud of COVID too. I mean, that hasn't even really been brought up, but the cloud of COVID exists over all of this.
Yeah, I agree.
So
they've been lucky enough to not have any COVID cases for over 6 months, by the way.
Good for them.
Yeah.
You mean Ballina?
Yeah, Ballina. And so they said the proposed event could undo all of the good work that has, been done to make that happen.
They need to go set up shop somewhere where there's no infrastructure, where there's no city council or town.
That's probably next on the list. Look, I mean, I have a feeling they have plan, well, I don't know, but they should have plan A, B, C, and D, and this was probably plan B. Yeah. If the rest of the tour is canceled, we're already going to Australia, let's add another stop in Australia. Well, now this is getting thwarted. So plan C might be that, which is a boat in Indonesia.
No, I think that they could probably find another location in Australia. I just think they chose the wrong one. I think the idea of doing it at Lennox, they probably did make a preliminary call to somebody that's a friend over there that's a friend of tourism and chamber of commerce type guy on the Ballina Council, and he's like, I think we can do this. Let's try to get this through. And now we're at where we're at, where
Word
there's
leaks out.
yeah, as soon as they found out, there's tons of pushback, and the guy's like, "Oh, bad idea." So this is just gonna go away quickly, I think.
Yeah.
And but to me, I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, where could they do it? Because it does make sense if they are going to be there for 3 events. Like, if that's happening, right? We're assuming that's happening. If that happens, it does make sense to just do another event in Australia. Like, like, I bet they pulled the trigger on some place like Sydney, like Bondi or something, or Manly or wherever, like.
That's got more people than, I
I
mean, in
know,
terms of
but
COVID protocol.
I agree, but it's also
Conveniently located.
yeah, it's like they have events there, like Lennox. When was the last time you heard of an event at Lennox? That's like, hey, we decided to have one at Rincon. No, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like George Greeno's not going to allow you to have an event at his spot.
Yeah. I was talking to, that's a good point.
Can't you pick a spot that's got a bunch of high performance shortboard beach break waves? Like,
yeah.
Narrabeen.
Well, so what about the thought, this is tangential, but should there be a world title deemed in this year if they're able to kind of pull a half-assed year? If there's a couple of events in Australia, I'm of the opinion they should just not even have a world title. Like, maybe come up with some other name for somebody that wins the year. But at this point, Sunset's canceled. Santa Cruz is probably not going to run.
Here's what I would do. I would look to precedent, and I would look to 2001 and determine how many number of events were run for CJ Hobgood to win the
5.
world title. Okay, so that's the number. You need to run 5 events. That precedent has been set. If you can pull off 5 events, you can pull off a world champion. That's my opinion on that. And it's really not opinion. It's just precedent. Like,
but was that the right decision at the time?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is. CJ Hobgood is the 2001 world champion. He always will be. And that's fine. That's what it is. Like, you can't now change it.
You can do a better version of it moving forward. Like, I understand what you're talking about, but legal precedent exists, but they also,
it's not legal, but it's just precedent.
Well, I'm using legal precedent as a, I don't know, as a metaphor or comparable, and legal precedent gets changed through amendments and, ratifying things or whatever. So I think you can actually change it. And I don't know, we'd have to ask CJ how, and I'm sure he's been asked before, how he feels about it. But I think that there could be, with hindsight, I don't know, they might have done things differently if they had gotten a second chance to do the 2001, world title. So I don't know. I just feel like there's
it's a little different because, okay, go ahead. Well,
there's 2 things that I'm worried about. Yeah, go.
In 2001, there was this real, because there was a world terrorism attack, there was this real, like, let's get back. Let's not let the terrorists win. Let's get back to work. Let's deem world champions. Let's get on airplanes. Let's go play. COVID is different. Like, COVID's like, it's not like a nation state or some sort of terroristic entity has attacked us and we have to, like, bully up and pound our own chest and go, we can beat this. This is like science. Like, there's only one way to beat it. Vaccinate the shit out of everybody.
Well, there's 2 things happening here, though. There's events not running that were scheduled to run. And then because of the COVID thing, I feel like we could find ourselves in a scenario where the WSL is holding events, but not all the surfers make it to the venue. So if that were the case, and if Idolo is not an event, or Gabe or John or one of these world title contenders, then is it really a world title? At least CJ, it was 5 events that got canceled, by the way, mid-year. It wasn't canceled from the beginning, and everybody still showed up for the events and competed. So you still had the best surfers in the world at the stops that actually were scheduled, the ones that we're able to travel to. And so I could see if any of the world title contenders aren't there to, like, give their A game, then there's a really big asterisk next to the world title.
I would agree. We would need that. If they had 4 events in Australia, we would be at number 5 because Pipe event already happened. And if all of the surfers were there, I would suggest to you that 5 events is enough to deem a world title. That's enough to get enough shakeout, enough different waves, enough different competition scenarios, so that, once you, like I say, you shake the bottle, there's a winner at the end of it, But I agree with you. Obviously you would need all of the competitors to be there. And that's a big ask, because Brazil is a COVID hellhole right now. Yeah. Like, it's not good in Brazil. Yeah. I think that South African variant's running wild through there. And, if you're an Australian health expert, that's the one airplane you don't want to land, is the one from Brazil.
Yeah. The other, I was just going to say, like, you want variety of waves on tour as well. And if there's not a huge variety within those 5 stops, that also questions the title. Well, but look, in fighting, they do an interim title, right? So if the reigning champ is injured and has to sit out, but they still want to have fights, they do an interim title. And I think we could do something like that even.
Yeah, maybe there's some sort of Australian title that you deem. But the bottom line here, though, is that, look, we can still have this tour end with a pipe event. So now you're looking at 6 events bookended by pipeline. Right? In December, they're going pretty quick here, trying to move. I know there's some logistical nightmares right now, but they're going to work through that. And I think we're going to be good to go by September or October, as far as everyone's back to normal, more or less.
That'd be nice.
But
a boy can dream.
I have to dream. By the way, October, the boardroom shows October 9th and 10th. We've moved it. It's a fluid situation, but it's now October 9th and 10th, 2021. That's breaking news.
Yeah, it is.
Just between you and me. We were doing it in September, but the fairgrounds kicked me to the curb. So I'm October 9th and 10th.
That makes sense.
I'm actually okay. I like that. I like being kind of pushed back a little.
Yeah, October works.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So anyway, what other WSL news do you have for me? Anything else?
That's the only WSL news. I've got the Nev Hyman story, if you want to check that at all.
Yes, I don't know anything about this.
It's not pretty. So Nev Houses is his project where he wants to save lives by providing cheap, easy to construct, or I should say affordable, easy to construct, kind of plastic-based housing for communities that have been affected by natural disasters or just impoverished communities. He can come in, build a bunch of houses inexpensively. And he got funding for this project. I think 3 different rounds of funding, and money is missing, essentially. So shareholders are upset that they've been defrauded out of their investments. This is
this an alleged thing, or is this occurred in court? And they've done a financial audit, and they know that this is not good.
This was reported on Australian Financial Review. And so it is, I can't tell you whether or not it's alleged or fully verifiable, but it's being reported by actual, news outlets. Yeah. And Nev, so then Beach Grid, of course, covers it. And then Nev reaches out to Derek and is like, what the heck, dude? Like, I have a stellar reputation. You can't find anything negative about me anywhere. And I really don't appreciate the implications here. And the photo that Derek used kind of summed it up. It was Nev posing with Imelda Marcos. Because apparently when he was working out this deal, he ends up in the Philippines, and he's, they're like, hey, would you like to go meet with Imelda Marcos? And so he did. He went and met with her, and they did a photo op together. Now that's the photo that Derek was using to promote this article, which implies, of course, that
fraud.
She stole a bunch of money from the country, and he's going to be using that money for his project. That is just not a good implication. Yeah. But anyways, Derek was kind enough to at least give Hyman the floor. And Hyman basically said, not a single penny has been missing. It's all accounted for. And some shareholders are upset, but look, there's 175 shareholders, and the few that are upset and they have a vendetta against me and they're trying to vilify me are going to ruin it for everybody else who has money tied up in this still. Like, this project can still happen. And so he's saying that it's all just kind of, it's all
too
a
many cooks in the
ruse.
kitchen.
But the reality of what it seems from reading this article is that the project ultimately will not come to fruition, and that those shareholders might not see a return on that investment. That sort of thing happens with startups all the time. It probably happens more often than not. So if the real story here is Nev Hyman, had a project that could save lives and make millions of dollars for the investors, and it ultimately did not come to fruition, that's the story. The detail of the Australian Financial Times write-up was that the shareholders felt that they were, that there was fraud. Yeah. And that Nev, I think they even said, like, Nev's flying first class around the world and he's, living the life of Riley, which Nev refuted in the piece on Beach Grit. Basically said he's got a stellar reputation. He's only ever flown coach, and every penny is accounted for. So,
well, excuse me. I don't know too much about this other than what you told me. I've met Nev, I think, once, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I do think he has a stellar reputation, and I think that you probably do have some angry shareholders that are trying to wrest control of this thing away from him, and so perhaps they've done some of their own sort of forensics on his books and found a way to kind of like throw some shade on what he's doing so that they can wrest control of the deal. And I don't know. I just don't know. But it seems like Beach Grit might have went overboard. But I don't know. I didn't read it. You tell me. What's your gut feeling on it? You know more about it than me.
I don't know Nev person. So, like, I think what I said about startups fail all the time.
Yeah.
And
is this a nonprofit?
I don't know if it's a nonprofit or not.
Okay.
But no, I can't imagine. I can't imagine that it is. But even if it was for profit, it was going to solve problems, and give people housing who couldn't otherwise have it.
Wasn't he taking like pollution and and like doing something with huge mounds, billions of tons of pollution, and turning it into like some sort of building product that he could build these homes with?
Yes, that's a portion of it. I think
that's not something that that's not the type of thing that somebody that's going into an idea with the hopes of thank you.
Yeah.
It's
no,
like,
I agree.
Dude, if you're gonna go for trying to rip somebody off, you're gonna create some sort of like crypto coin or something. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know that yes, often, but sometimes, I mean, people get into pharmaceuticals that are going to help people, but then they make billions of dollars off of that, off helping people essentially. So there is an opportunity to help people and to make money. But yeah, I mean, everything that I know about Nev, whom I've never met, seems like he's a stand-up guy. And there's startups that fail all the time. Even from successful entrepreneurs have startups that fail all the time. So for this one to fail, I don't think is that unusual. But I also don't get the.
What's the outlook? Is this thing is this thing circling the drain, or is this gonna?
Yeah, it seems like Nev's trying to keep his chin up and be like, hey, this still has opportunity to work, and those who are basically vilifying me are hindering that possibility moving forward, because this is all bad press. But from what the Australian Financial Review wrote, it seemed like the thing was dead in the water.
Seems like a hit job to me. Seems like somebody doesn't like Nev in charge, and they're like calling their buddy over at the Sydney Financial Times to get a hit job written. Who knows?
Maybe. Did you see Russell Bierke's Wipeout?
No.
Oh
I want to.
Dude.
Where is it at?
I'll send it to you. There's a YouTube video of it. Russell Bierke surfing this slabby left, eats it, gets dragged on the bottom, hits something on the bottom. He doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
The thing ripped a hole in his arm open
Oh no.
to where you could see exposed muscle and everything. It is disgusting. Gaping hole in his forearm.
Where is it at?
Somewhere in Australia. I don't know.
Uh,
But Russell Bierke, I mean, the guy shows up on our radar once every, I don't know, year or something. He's an animal. The guy is an animal. He's standing there with this hole in his arm, just fully like not getting lightheaded, doesn't need to lay down, nothing. He's just standing there looking into his arm. It's crazy. And the wave itself is just so gnarly. So
I'm trying to find it, but I'm not sure
I'll text it to you right now.
what to search for.
I'll just text it to you. What else you got? What do you got in your notes?
Whoops, sorry.
I texted it.
What else do I got? Let's see, what else do I got?
Did you watch Free Scrubber?
Okay, Free Scrubber. Loved it. Loved Free Scrubber for all the right reasons. Free Scrubber was great, not for the surfing, but for Tom Curren. just being Tom. That's the best part. Is and the most disappointing part was when he starts singing a song and somebody puts their finger on the keyboard and ruined it. That was a bummer. He was singing a song about fear, actually. But I mean, look, the surfing was fun, but Tom Curren's just fun.
Yeah.
You know?
You weren't impressed by the surfing?
No, I love the surfing. Are you kidding? It's Tom Curren. What's not to love? It's incredible.
Okay. Because the surfing was I agree with what you said about Curren being Curren, but the surfing for me was, it was exactly what we've always seen Tom Curren do, and it's revolutionary. Like, even though we've seen it a million times before, it is a complete reminder of how we need to reset everything, abandon all of our other inputs, like stop watching Felipe Toledo, stop watching any of those not stupid, but stop watching any of those people and just watch Tom. Tom has it all. And
he does.
I'll never fly through the air. And so why am I even looking at that? I just want to watch this. And it is a deft artist at the zenith of his career. Like, you watch, let's say, Rembrandt. You look at a Rembrandt painting. It's like, I have no idea about the technical process of applying paint to a canvas and how he gets these shadow gradients. I could just look at it because it's beautiful. And I could just let it wash over me. And that's what Tom Curren's surfing is. It's like, there is so much technical detail and artistry, but I can just let it wash over me because it's that beautiful to watch. You know, it's really, really remarkable. And the fact that he is such a weirdo on land just makes it so much better.
He's the greatest.
He's the greatest.
He's the greatest. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT over Slater. He's the GOAT because he encompasses he's always encompassed the sort of the free spirit that is at the heart of what surfing's all about. Liberty, you know? Like, Slater's the GOAT, but he puts on this cloak of confinement that is competitive surfing. You know what I mean? Like, and even when he's free surfing, you get the feeling like in his mind, he's like, okay, if I do it like this, though, I'll get more points. You know what I mean? Whereas Tom's dancing. Tom's always been a dancer. From day one, he's been a dancer, and he dances the jazz, man. He's incredible. He's Tom Curren, the GOAT.
We love Slater for all the reasons, like,
competitively.
And he's also, but like I was just going to say, the difference is Slater's so self-aware. Like, he's calculating every decision and like what it looks like publicly, and like, how do I then take over the surfing world? Well, I'll have a clothing company and I'll own the wave and I'll own the surfboards that you use to ride that wave. And then and he's making these moves and he's moving blocks, and which is part of the reason why we love Slater.
That's not why I love Slater, but go ahead.
But what we love about Tom is the exact opposite. There's zero self-awareness. Tom's understanding of the industry, he's never even thought about the industry. But there's also, like, the most perfect marketing move of all time was Rip Curl and Derek Hind at Rip Curl at the time inventing the search. Because that is Tom. It sums up Tom perfectly. Is, like you said, he's a free spirit. He's a wanderer. And so to kind of build your marketing campaign and even your brand to a large extent around letting Tom be Tom is genius. It's not contrived at all. There's no moving of pieces. It's just, this guy, we need to let him be him, and we need to prop him up and buy him plane tickets and just put a camera on him. And it works every time. And Free Scrubber's an extension of that. It's not being able to search because you're quarantined and locked down in Mexico, but letting him kind of just run rampant. And by the way, Tom, don't worry about any obligations. Like, you can't go see your family. You can't go chase swell. There's nowhere to go. You're just stuck here. So run amok. And I thought it was beautifully done.
I did too. The music was really good too. I really enjoyed the music in it. And I would like to hear more Tom playing and surfing to his own music.
Well,
I think if I was, go ahead.
I interviewed Vaughn Blakey, the director.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm going to be publishing it today. And it was funny. He's like, Tom's so hard to work with, obviously. And he goes, I sent Tom the entire film, and I wanted one of his songs to close out the final section. Took 3 months for Tom to reply to my text message.
He's like, yeah, I lost it.
No, he's like, Vaughn's like, we had already, had another plan in place. And then I got a text from Tom, and it just said, here's the song. The audio might be off. Or like Tom said, here it is, but it was basically like a crappy version. So it's not like Tom spent 3 months in the studio crafting this masterpiece. And Vaughn had sent him the video. So Tom knew the time code that it needed to match. The song was too short. No. So Vaughn's like, he gave me some half-ass version of the song that was too short. So I had to put like additional music on the front of that part of the footage and just put Tom's. But Tom's music worked perfectly.
Yeah, one of the credits mentioned like you could maybe go get some of Tom's music somewhere. I need to rewatch it to find that credit, but I wanted to go get some of Tom's music. I got a cool name for a movie, the next Tom Curren edit. And it should be like 15 or 17 minutes long like this one. I don't want a 2-minute edit of Tom Curren. I need 17 minutes.
I want 17 hours.
Yes. It should be called Stop Searching for Tom Curren. He's Not Lost. That would be the name of mine.
I see what you're getting at, Scott.
Pretty clever.
I like how you incorporate a dad joke into the title.
That's right. I found that to be a highlight of my week.
Yeah.
It was great. And I talked to Bugs, who was down there, who's in the film, and he said that he didn't think they used some of the better waves. Like they got some good swell down there. And his take on it was there was better surf.
Crazy.
It was available. There was better footage.
I would love to see that.
So that's what Bugs said.
I want to know more about Bugs. What's his story, and how is he such good friends with Tom Curren?
I don't know. I know Bugs pretty well, but not super well. But he's just a guy, lives in Los Angeles and sort of connected. And he has a place down there in Salina Cruz. And so during COVID, it was during March and April.
Yeah.
Or June. Like it was during the beginnings of it. And they just found their way down there, and they were basically there for months. I want to say at least a month, maybe 2, because they were stuck there.
Right. Do you know what Bugs, does he come from surfing? Can you say more about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's been surfing for a long time. He's from Los Angeles. He's been surfing a long time. And
but does he work in surfing?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I think he's in real estate. I think he's a real estate speculator, or he's in real estate somehow. He's very, very fiscally successful.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I feel like you should interview him for the Boardroom podcast. Find out who this man is and why he has such unfettered access to the man that we're all searching for.
I've been with him when Tom just calls him out of the blue.
Yeah.
So
these are the things that our audience wants to know.
You know what one of the funniest stories about Tom Curren, it's been told numerous times, but I'll just butcher it up real quick here. Sonny Miller tells a funny story where he's getting picked up at the airport by Tom. And Tom's been in France this is in Europe, in France. And Tom's been in France for like, I don't know, 6 months or something. And Tom picks up Sunny at the airport, and Tom's beater car, and there's just shit everywhere. And there's like wrappers and wax and surfboards and clothes, and it's just some beater car. And Sonny looks, and on the ground is a check for $10,000. It's Tom Curren's winner's check from like 4 months ago from an event like the Lacanau Pro. And it's all wrinkled up, and it's got like, salsa on it. And it's got torn and frayed. And Sonny's like, Tom, what's the deal with this $10,000 check on your floor, man? And Tom's like, oh yeah, shoot, I need to deposit that, And that's sort of sums up Tom.
It really does. Man, I love it. So good. So good.
Yeah.
I
don't know if I have anything else.
Well, we owe a shout out to both Neat Essentials and NVS Fins, of course. I've been writing my album Twinsman, which, by the way, Scott, I wanted to get you on that thing too. It's probably too late now. I want to do surfboard reviews. I want to take surfboard reviews more seriously. That's one thing listeners have asked for, like, more consistently than anything over the years. They're like, what are you guys riding? Talk about what you guys are riding.
Look, I'm all for that. If you want to, just know that I'll help you with that if you want to come down. But we'll have to do it down here. Can you
that's
come
the
down
problem.
here?
Logistically, it's a challenge right now because we're not seeing each other in person. But my thought
we can surf.
Well, my thought was, why do I have to come down there? Why don't we meet somewhere in between?
So you can watch me surf.
Exactly. So my point is I'm doing a bunch of hard work on this already. But like I got this album.
Hey.
I got this album Twinsman, right? From Matt.
Yes.
You and I are relatively the same size. We could both ride it. Like I could ride it, review it. You could ride it, review it.
How much do you weigh?
175.
Okay. I'm probably 190.
Oh, okay.
It's the sourdough working. I might be 185.
All right, then maybe it
and I'm also
work.
I'm probably 5 years older than you. Maybe 3.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it won't work for us to ride the same boards. I just thought it'd be good to get your feedback.
No, I'll do it. I think it is good. No, we do need to do that. I can definitely ride what you're riding. You know what I mean?
In this case, if it's a mid-length or something, then you could. If it's a short board, then it'll be a little more.
How big is the board? It's behind you, right? Isn't it the one behind you?
No, that's a short board. It's 6.0. And
yeah, I can ride a 6.0. Is it like 2.5?
It's beefy. Yeah.
Oh, good. It's 2 5/8 or more.
I forget, but yeah, it's at least 2.5. I'd say.
Yeah, I can ride that.
Well,
I'd like to do that. I would like to do that. We should try to figure out a way to do that.
So we will moving forward in the year. But this board, I'm actually giving away to one of our listeners who subscribes to the podcast. Oh. So it's a gently used board, but on March 1st, we're going to be giving it away as a thank you to the subscribers. So we'll ride the boards, we'll review them, and then give it away so that the listener can benefit from it as well.
I've got a board. I'll give away a board.
No way.
For the sake of
perfect.
Yeah, why not?
What do you? Yeah. You want in mind, or one that you want to think about it?
Yeah. Look, I bought a board. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
I just bought a board that I think is too small for me.
Okay.
I bought it kind of on Instagram thinking, and then I picked it up and I'm like, it's maybe there's no way I could ride it in the winter. I would have to have trunks on.
Was it the board that last week you said that you sent a DM and they didn't reply to you? Was it that board?
Yes.
Okay.
I bought that board. It's a Max McDonald shaped Clyde Beatty rocket fish. And it's like the tiger fish that I've shown you, that I've shown some people, but it's a smaller version. It's 6.0, but I bought it and it's less than 20 inches wide. It's like 19 3/4, which that's a line I don't cross anymore. I can't ride any board that's not at least 20 inches wide.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're looking at me like, yeah, you are an old motherfucker.
Well, no, I'm trying to think of what design might go narrower that would suit, but maybe not.
No.
Well, okay. So on that album Twinsman, I've been riding. The album actually did a set of fins with NVS
Have them.
fins.
I have them. They're insane.
Yeah,
I ride them
they are.
on one of my quads, I think, or is it a tri-fin set? I forget, but no, yeah, it's a quad set.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. That's what so NVS Fins obviously is a sponsor of this show, and they are the Apex series fins. They're made from the G10 laminate, which is strong. It allows them, because of the lamination process, it allows them to create like super fine, refined edges to the foil. So what you get is like a thinner leading and exiting edge. So less disruption of the water, cuts through the water faster, but also that material is stronger. So you get thinner fins, less mass, less actual volume of fin, and stronger. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, and they're less expensive, and listeners get a discount. They get 10% off Apex Series fins with our promo code, which is the word podcast. So Surf NVS, I've been riding a bunch of their fins, but specifically this Album Upright Twins. If you ride a mid-length of any kind of brand, the Upright Twins are kind of the way to go. If it's a twin mid-length, the Upright Twins are kind of the way to go.
Well, what about, so I have the C drives that NVS
I know, I haven't tried those yet.
Well, so here's what's interesting, right? People can go to my Instagram right now, Boardroom Show, and go onto my story, and there's footage of me riding those fins on a mid-length, on a 610 Ryan Sakel Sabre, and you can see the fins doing their thing. So in regards to doing board reviews,
yeah,
go onto my, and I'll post another one. So if you're listening now, within the next 24 hours, you can go onto my story and see 2 rides. One of them will be with the Album quads, and one of them will be with the Sabre C drives.
Got it. On the same exact board.
No, 2 different boards.
Oh, okay. I wish we could just swap my Album Twins. I could give to you to ride a couple sessions on, and I could ride your C drive Twins. We'll get NVS to send us new fins.
Those guys are great.
Because I want to try the C drive twin.
Yeah.
I only have the thruster. So look forward to all that stuff, but also support our sponsors, surfnvs.com, promo code podcast. And then of course, Neat Essentials. I mean, they just keep us styled out and warm.
Yes.
I'm wearing the wetsuits, wearing the trunks, wearing the shorts to run in. I'm doing a ski trip later this month. Got all the ski gear, pants, puffer jacket, snowboard shell.
You may vomit a little bit in your mouth, but I've been wearing the shorts when I play pickleball.
Are you kidding me?
No.
My parents are super into pickleball.
Pickleball, bro.
Did you just get into it?
Yeah, more or less, maybe in the last month.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've crossed.
Have I gone to the, oh, speaking of crossing the old man line, I had something happen that I wanted a real quick touch. I was surfing the other day. It was pretty solid. It was a good solid 6-foot day, low tide, a lot of groms, a lot of surfers out, and I'm in position and a set wave comes, but I got to paddle to get to it and then turn as it's breaking, and it's going to be a late drop. And I probably should have went, but I didn't because there was guys out in front in the flats. I thought I was maybe going to run them over. But the bottom line is that in the past, I would have just gone and dealt with the circumstances and probably hit some people. And it was, after this wave, one of the other guys that was next in position, one of the local guys that I surf with all the time, was like, he kind of gave me that look like, dude, that was your wave. You should have went, right? And I kind of sat there and I was like, and he looked at me and I looked at him, and I realized I had that moment. This is the first time I've acknowledged it, where I was the old guy that was in the right spot that should have gone, and I didn't go.
Wow.
And I even told him, I go, dude, you know what? This is one of those moments. Like, I'm going to go home and write this in my little diary. I had that moment where I was that guy, the old guy that was in the spot. Yeah, like you see guys, you're like, dude, you were in the fucking perfect spot. Why didn't you
all
go?
the time. Yeah,
I was that guy. It's the first time it's ever happened. And I acknowledged it to him, and he goes, no. You were going to run us over if you went. And I go, yeah, I know, but I should have went. He's like, well, you know.
Well,
and
okay,
goes,
so
guess
now
what? You're not up next. I'm up next. To the back of the line.
So now that you've confronted yourself in the mirror, do you resign to that role, or do you elevate and start doing more reps of the arc method and
Yeah.
get back to your rightful
Yes.
spot.
Yes, you start pickleball as part of the process of getting lean and mean. Gotta get
No,
pickleball.
starting pickleball is resigning to the role of the old man.
No. Quick twitch.
And this is embarrassing. My parents will be psyched though. They'll play.
Oh yeah. Embrace
My dad's like ranked. He's like goes and gets tested for his ranking. I think like he's a category 4 or something.
Oh, good for him.
He's good.
Hey, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What is it that you and Lauren do together?
Everything because of COVID. Like this is the longest I haven't seen her in like 9 months.
Activity wise.
We hike / walk. We both run, but we run separately because we're on different paces. So we'll usually do hikes together.
Okay. Do you have other couples that you socialize with?
Not so much. Oh, I mean, it's COVID,
some.
dude. It's COVID.
You can play pickleball for God's sake.
We have tons of friends.
Okay, I know you do. So my point is that this is a great opportunity for you and your significant other to do an activity and socialize with other couples in a safe COVID environment, which is the outdoors. That's what I'm suggesting. That this is a social engagement as much as it is a physical engagement.
Yeah, that's what my parents get out of it too. Go out there in the morning, spend a couple hours with friends. You know what is even more socially distanced?
This podcast?
Tennis.
Ah.
Tennis. It's even larger court, more distance between people. Why aren't you playing tennis?
I play pickleball.
I know. That's my question.
That was my answer. By the way, Curren's wave on that 5'7" fireball fish at Bawa about 25 years ago.
Yep.
Some have considered that as maybe being on the Mount Rushmore of waves.
I'm not against it. I like it.
It needs to be thrown in the equation, but we need to determine those 10 waves and we need to create a new name for it. Can't be Mount Rushmore.
I agree. By the way, talking about your wave that you didn't go on.
Yeah.
My kook of the week is actually, there's 2 different clips that I can refer to, but it is whoever ditches their board rather than duck diving their board. So did you see the clip of Ryuki Waida?
Was that the one you sent? Go ahead. I think I saw this. But
He gets barreled. He's in Bali. Yeah. A perfect
duck dives, another guy gets pitched over and somehow he comes out of the tube. Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So Ryuki is on a right, pulls into the tube. At the exact same time, you see a guy enter the 2 people interrupt the wave. You see a guy paddling in from the bottom of the frame, and rather than duck diving, he literally like pushes his board underwater and then just dives under and lets go of his board. So his board pops up like a tombstone straight into the tube, actually projects kind of forward into the tube. And at the same time, simultaneously, somebody who apparently was paddling into the wave and decided not to go ditches their board and goes over the falls. The board goes over the falls. So you have one board projecting into the tube from the bottom and another one coming over the top from the falls. And Ryuki just holds his line, which you think would have hit certainly the board that got projected up. And Ryuki emerges unscathed, somehow surfed the wave perfectly. But the kook, I mean, I watch that and I just go, what are people thinking? The dude paddling out, what was he thinking? Like he actually projected the thing into the tube. Couldn't have picked a worse thing to do. A, learn how to duck dive. B, learn which direction to paddle out. This was a complete failure on his part. That guy needed to get ejected from the lineup. Then Sebastian Stutner, big wave surfer Sebastian Stutner, post footage at Nazare, going left. And there's a guy who does the exact same thing. He goes to like duck dive. You think he's going to duck dive, and then he just lets go of his board. So the thing slings out, actually hits Stutner straight in the like chest, in the face. He thankfully put his arm up to prevent damage to his face, but the force of the board dislocated his clavicle, fractured ribs, tore muscles in his neck and his chest, legit injuries, had to get rescued off the ski, taken into the beach, straight to the hospital. Spent 2 months out of the water because of this injury, and he got it all on GoPro. He's got the point of view footage of this guy doing exactly what I just described. So Kooks, The kook of the week is anybody who ditches their board into an oncoming surfer, especially.
Those places need one of those big kahuna guys to regulate.
Exactly.
There wouldn't be anybody in the water.
Exactly.
Okay, well,
wait,
I got to run.
I know you got to run. My must-see moment is Dane Reynolds, Not Today. Did you watch Dane Reynolds' latest edit?
No.
All right, Scott, quote from the reason why it's called Not Today is because he's still riding a shortboard. He's not giving into pickleball. He's not giving into the mid-length. This is what Dane says. I'm going to read you his own words. He says no pickleball. He says, quote, someday I'll have to hang it up. Stop forcing my fossilized body to pump and thrash and relax into a more soulful manner of riding waves. Maybe buy an old van and burn some sage, get resin tints and grow a ponytail and then wrap it into a bun, switch to craft beer, hang up the thruster and glide in from out the back on a 7/6 single fin. I'll put my arms in the air when I reach the crest of every gently peeling wave, but not today. Fight it, Scott.
I don't know. It's interesting. That's interesting. That's an interesting thing. It sounds like he's got a resentment against us.
Sounds like he listened. Sounds like he listened to our last show of us wanking down the line. And by the way, his next paragraph was all about not making sourdough bread.
And then no pickleball.
He's like, hey, I'm French baguette exclusively. Sourdough out the window. Occasionally, I'll have a ciabatta.
So I opened up a Pandora's box the other day. I watched somewhere on Instagram this guy that made the first set of Simon's thruster fins back in 1980. It was a really cool thing. I don't know if you saw the YouTube. It was really well done. It was cool. It was a fin maker, the original fin maker. And I got all fired up. I'm like, you know what? And he mentioned, sending $1 per thruster that you've owned to Simon as a way of saying thank you, a token of gratitude, if you will. And so I sent Simon some money. I was like, you know what? The guy's right. I've got enough money laying around that I'm going to just send $100 to Simon. I bet I've had about 100 thrusters in my life, plus or minus. I don't know. So I did it, right? And I put an Instagram post. I posted some pictures of Simon. I'm like, hey, if you feel so inclined, please consider throwing $1 to Simon Anderson. Here's my Venmo receipt. I did it. You could do it too. Maybe it's only $1. If everybody sent him $1, that would be insane. Think about it.
Totally. Or $1. Yeah.
So just $1. Like if you sent him $1. And so, of course, I got a bunch of pushback, oh, that's lame. What about this guy? What about those guys? What about them? Nobody was, and I'm like, fine, send those people money. I don't care. Do whatever you want with your money. I'm just saying I sent Simon some money. You don't have to do it. And then somebody sent me a thing that said, Simon doesn't even want you to do that. There's apparently his new book that I think Derek Riley maybe, or no, Kidman, maybe somebody wrote a book, maybe it was Sean, with Simon. And there's a whole section in the book about the thruster. And it's basically like, yeah, I don't really want the money because I don't need your charity. I'm doing good. It seems, Simon's kind of proud about it. So he doesn't want your money, basically. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, so anyway, it was a nice sentiment on your part. Yeah. I like the idea for sure, but I did feel uncertain about that too. I didn't want to just be patronizing,
Well, anyway.
But okay. I like the idea.
And Dane Reynolds, I'm gonna hit my pickleball at your head.
Hey, who are we kidding? You're like, I probably owned 100 thrusters. You owe Simon $1,000, not 100. You have 100 right now in your garage.
Oh, Lordy, this is probably true.
At any rate, I know you got to go. Huge thanks to Neat Essentials and NVS Fins, of course, and to the listeners. And if they want to get in on that album, subscribe. Click subscribe. It's in your show notes. It's a hyperlink, and it'll support us.
Okay, great. Until next time, adios and aloha.